Welcome to another installment in our playlist of Earth is Our Spherical Home Planet. This one we take on science deniers who don't believe the moon landings happened. In particular, they use what they think of as evidence of fakery because of the Nixon phone call. Well, we'll show you in this video that it was not only possible, it actually had been possible for quite some time before it took place. And stick around to the end when we add a personal touch to this issue, something that affected us growing up. So let's get started. Yeah, one other thing worth mentioning is that some of the space moon landing deniers claim that the delay between one side talking and the other is somehow evidence of fakery. But remember, the video is being recorded on from the Earth side of this conversation. So when Nixon talks or Mission Control in Houston talks, you wouldn't expect there to be a delay. But when you have the Earth side stop talking and the moon side respond, then Armstrong or Aldrin on the moon, you would expect a delay. And I do put a timer on the screen so you can see that that's exactly what happens. First, let's take a look at how this event played out.
Neil and Buzz, the President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you. Over. That would be an honor. Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made from the White House. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you have done. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure that they too join with Americans in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the sea of tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but men of peace of all nations, and with interest and a curiosity and with a vision for the future. Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
So you notice that Nixon didn't have a delay when he responded to Armstrong because this video is being recorded from his end of the conversation, and that's what you'd expect. So here's a diagram showing how Houston was able to stay in constant communication with the Apollo mission. They had a Goldstone tracking station in the United States, and when the Earth rotated so that North America wasn't facing the moon anymore, they had tracking stations in Australia and a system of satellites so that they could be in constant contact with the astronauts. Here's a photograph I found online of the Honeysuckle Creek tracking station in Canberra, Australia. So now here's a look at the technology that was developed in the 1940s, more than 20 years before the Apollo missions, that made the Nixon phone call possible. In the 1940s, Bell Labs developed the technology to make it possible for a landline phone call to go to a radio relay and then back to a landline again. Once that was established, AT&T and Bell Systems built a system of towers all the way across the United States, 107 towers altogether that were line-of-sight microwave relays. They built them about 30 miles apart because they had to account for the curvature of the Earth, and these systems were line-of-sight. So the system of 107 towers was built from 1948 to 1951 at a cost of $40 million. proving that a landline phone call didn't need to have a cable all the way from one end to the other. So after this was completed, someone in San Francisco could be on a landline talking to their friend in New York City on a landline and have a radio relay in between. No cable necessary for the whole call. There are shorter radio relays built before this transcontinental project and after they could branch off from it. So it served the whole West Coast from San Francisco. They got to Portland, Seattle, and Los Angeles. Not just phone calls, but also broadcasts from radio stations and television broadcasts as well. And in 1951, it carried a peace conference attended by President Harry Truman in San Francisco that could be viewed by all the major cities in the country. Some of these microwave relay towers are still around. Here's one in Indiana, and here's one on Topanga Ridge, north of Los Angeles, covered in graffiti. So, here's an example of a man who looks like he's using a landline. Is that true? Well, no, he's the captain of a ship. So, is there a cable running all the way from his ship back to port? No, of course not. He's using the radio. One of the other things that moon landing deniers point to is the picture of the Earth from the moon in Nixon's office. But this was taken by the Apollo 8 mission, which was the first one to go to the moon but orbit it, not land on it. And that happened 8 months before the Apollo 11 mission, and it was during the Johnson administration. So Nixon wasn't even the president when this picture was taken. Now, for that personal story I mentioned at the beginning, my father was in the Air Force. He was a pilot, and we grew up on Air Force bases. And one time, well, several times during the time he was in the Air Force, he went on what's called temporary duty or TDY. And once we lived in Georgia around 1965, 66, and he was on TDY in Spain for about 3 months. Well, during the time he was gone, we got a phone call on our landline in Georgia, and we were told by a radio operator, this is a phone call going through radio. When you're done talking, you need to say over so that your father knows it's his turn. And when he has his turn is done, he'll say over and you'll know it's your turn to talk. So that's the way our conversation went. So we had experience with a landline at our end with a radio relay coming in and going out. So in July 20th, 1969, we saw Richard Nixon talking on the phone to the Apollo 11 astronauts on the moon. We knew exactly what was going on because we had personal experience with it. Nixon's phone call went to from Washington, D.C. to Houston, Mission Control, and then they patched it into their radio feed that they already had established to the astronauts. Simple, and the technology had been around for over 20 years. So all those moon landing deniers who try to point to the Nixon phone call as evidence of fakery, you better find something else, because even if this video doesn't convince you the moon landings were real, you can't use the Nixon phone call as evidence, because the technology was there for 20 years before he used it. Dave McKeegan has also done an excellent video on debunking the Nixon phone call as evidence of fakery, and we'll link to his video in our description. If you like this video, be sure to give us a like and a subscribe, and then hit the notification bell. And leave us a comment. Should be clear by now that the moon landing deniers cannot use the Nixon phone call as evidence of fakery anymore.